Welcome to the Color Commute for October 8th. As we take a look at some of the color around Gaylord, we'll start at the office here this morning where we had some foggy skies, but you can see that the color is starting to change across the region. In fact, we have a fair amount of color in there. Looking across the road and at some of the trees nearby and on the line across the back lot, we have a fair amount of color that's starting to come out. It's actually what the Foliage Network website would call moderate color, I believe. And now we'll just jump right into the color commute. Up here on Passenheim Road, we head towards Mancelona Road. We have a fair amount of color, as I said earlier, across the street. And we see that some of the trees down the street are starting to turn a little yellowish. Now there's a few that are bright orange in there as well. And of course we also have our pine trees that are around. There's also a fair amount of trees that still haven't quite started turning as far as the deciduous trees. And you can see them kind of in here as they're interspersed with some brilliant orange and yellows across here. And we'll just take a look at what's going on as we head down the hill on Mancelona Road. As we reach the bottom of the hill on Mancelona Road and go around the bend, we see suddenly there is quite a drop-off in color, partly from the pine trees, but also the deciduous trees haven't really started turning much. They're just starting to turn a bit yellowish. There are some really brilliant orange in a few of the trees, but for the most part, things have pretty much tapered off. Not sure exactly why this is for this part of the road on the way back to home. I decided to speed things up here as there isn't a whole lot of color, and I skipped a portion of it, and there's not a whole lot of color here up Old 27 until you get right to about the State Park and Der Miners Parkside store, which is where I slow things down again. Yesterday I mischaracterized this off to our right as being the Ridge Resort. It's not. There's a development up in that area, but nothing. The Ridge is up by Charles Brink Road. Otherwise, as you take a look, there's yellows that are starting to show, but there's, for the most part, a lot of oranges just kind of dotting the area. Not a lot of reds, but just mainly oranges. And these are basically some species of maple trees just turn different colors, as I've been finding out. Some turn yellow, some turn orange, and some turn bright red. On a whole, the colors are starting to change, and as I noted in the previous color commute with the split screen, you can see the difference after a couple of days. And you can see the difference here too if you think back or even take a look at that other one. It was a little bit harder to see some of the colors yesterday just because of the gloominess of the past 3, 4, 5 days. We finally got a bright, sunshiny day across the region. As we pass Charles Brink Road, we start to see a little bit more color begin to take shape again as we start to go up the hill here towards the Ridge Resort, which is on our right-hand side. However, we do run into a few of the trees that haven't changed. That's mostly deciduous trees there with greens all over, and it's just a few that are turning yellow and orange, as well as over on the right-hand side as well. We're heading into the south end of town now as we start to pass by some of the businesses on the right. There's Benetham's and the Porterhouse. On our left-hand side, we can see some color, but for the most part, those trees are still fairly green. There has been some change over the last day or so, and even the last 4 days with the color over on the left-hand side, but not that much. And we still have a fair amount that hasn't changed yet on the right-hand side as well, until we get here to North Otsego Lake Drive, and there we start to see this brilliant colors that are starting to come out in some of these trees. These ones that are just off to the right that look kind of scraggly, they are fairly stressed, so they change fairly quickly, and they'll probably lose our leaves before we get to the peak here over the next couple of days and probably into next week. Of course, we have to speed up a little bit here as there isn't a whole lot to see, and then we slow down one more time as we start to approach some of these trees, especially as we get up closer to Mega Sports up ahead here, and that's where we see the most brilliant colors in some of the trees here in the south end of Gaylord, and they last all the way up into McCoy Road, and that's probably really the last stand of trees for the most part that are in town, at least on the south side here, and that's where we usually end, is right about McCoy Road. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. There's not many left.